Absolutely true. When they say you bring about what you don't want when you're afraid, it's true. And it's hard for us to see that at any given time. And one of the most important things, people, I want safety. I don't feel safe around that person. So I really appreciate you saying, well, we create safety within ourselves. The way we perceive the world brings about
Mm.
what we see. And one of the biggest paradoxes and the ironies of this is that if we're afraid, we tend to hide or manipulate or do different things. But why are we afraid? Is it because of our thoughts about someone else? Is it because of our judgments? And the truth is, the quickest path to safety and feeling safe is vulnerability. When you speak about what's alive in you, what's going on in you, what you're feeling in your body and your emotions and how you perceive the world, you're transparent. And therefore, the other person doesn't have to guess why it looks like your face looks like it's saying something different from what you're speaking. Because this creates suspicion, because you're not being honest. And so, lack of honesty and transparency creates lack of safety in relationship. And there's so many, well-meaning ways that we do this. Mothers might hide their emotions. They don't want to feel sad in front of their children, for example. But by not showing our true emotion and allowing that to pass through us, our children can get confused. Well, what they feel, because children are energetic, spongy beings. They feel just about everything we feel. We can try and hide it, but we really cannot. And that includes with other adults and other communities. People feel what's in the field. They might not know how to tap into it and really understand what's going on, but the confusion in families and workplaces where we try to behave in a certain way and we bottle ourselves up creates so much illness, mental, emotional, and physical illness in our world. And it's just so unnecessary, like completely not. But it does take a shift in our paradigm to trusting what's alive in us at any given moment. We have this tendency to judge negative emotions. We try to put them somewhere else, and it's not working. So,
Yeah. Yeah, the path of well-being, I believe, in health is through relationships. Like I love the saying, I'm rich in relationships, rich in many ways, because my relationships give me so much. And it's going back to like, me being a social creature. Because let's say if I'm not aware of how I operate in relationship, then what does that lead to, right? It leads to superficial relationships, it leads to divorce, it leads to um hedonistic lifestyles, right? I'm not down on that. Have fun, play, though it's like, where's the substance, where's the depth, where's the generative, rather than looking for vacations or quick dopamine hits or highs to make myself feel good, or even drinking, taking drugs to dance on the dance floor rather than just I'm high on life, right? I'm high on the oxygen that I breathe because I'm so secure and safe within myself. So it's like bringing that back to like this idea of like, if I really want to be effective and high performing person, the whole adage is, let's say, just stuff that stuff away. Let's not look at the past and let's just focus on getting stuff done. Right. And then using whatever enhancements, whether that be caffeine or, pre-workouts or whatever supplements to get me through the day. Though it just seems like I'm running on fumes. I'm not really whole and complete. Like there's always something more I need to crave to like keep that fix going. And it's like an addiction, so to speak. So it just seems like I'm running on adrenaline and stress cortisol and dopamine. Like I'm out of control.
most people
So
are, yeah.
yeah, so for me to be super effective, like I got to know how I operate, and that does require me to look in the past to create awareness so that I can shift in the present to create a new reality. And that's the invitation here, is like bringing the invitation of like, how are you wired, right? How how am I wired? Because when I look at it as a baby, you know, me learning from my mom and dad, it's everything is pre-verbal, everything is pre-memory. Even 9 months in my mother's womb. Whatever my mom is going through, I'm going through. So it's so critical to understand who I am through my family of origin, right? There's so many gifts and insights with that. So that when I go about relating in the world, it's interesting that it's like you're in a relationship and you track your mom or you track your dad. I'm sure many times you've dated your mom many times, you dated your dad many times. And why is that? Right? It's familiar. It's a familiar pattern, relational dynamic. And if I'm not aware of it, then I'm recreating what my parents had. And when we do this in a safe way, we can take those as opportunities to choose differently, to take a different path, to rewire, to heal, to grow. And it goes back to a previous talk of ours is relationships are assignments for each other's healing and growth. And that's when we can start to co-regulate each other and create that safety, right? And then that safety itself is so nurturing, so life-giving, so renewing. It's healthy, right? Would you say like a lot of like disease comes from blocked energy or people pleasing? It's just not being truthful, right? What do you say in terms of your work that you've noticed
It
in mind
it
body medicine?
Yeah, I mean, it does come back to trust, to truth, to what's alive in me. Is this energy in me something to be stuffed and pushed away and manipulated, or can it be trusted? Um, Emotions are energy in motion. We've talked about that before, that need to stay in motion. And most of the time, we're judging stuff. And when we judge it, it goes sideways. It creates disease in the body. Um, I think it's Gabor Mate had a video that women are 4 more times likely to die just from not expressing themselves. And it doesn't matter if they're in a happy relationship or an unhappy relationship. It's the idea of not actually expressing ourselves, not allowing what's alive in us in the moment to be expressed. That's what we're here for. We're here to express. We're here to be alive. We're here to create. We're here to co-create. We're here to have fun and to play with each other. And we're often just living drones, going 9 to 5, working. We're really in a slave culture without even recognizing that we really are slaves. And there's these emotional, mental, and spiritual enslavement patterns that most of us are getting really fed up with. And like you said, as babies, there's a pre-verbal language. It's everything's energetically wired in us. So you can't talk your way out of something you felt your way into. You need to be able to understand energetic law as it is wired in your body, and it's far more simpler than we ever think it is. It's about accepting, honoring, and trusting and observing the energy as it passes through you, not judging it with our mind. And a lot of us have different ways we receive this energy, although most of us are stuck in our head and are very uncomfortable in our body because of what they call trauma. I prefer to call it an energetic stamp or impression that's there. But as we start to access that information with others who are able to do it, we remember it. We don't even have to learn it and regurgitate it. We remember. It's in our body, it's in our DNA to allow ourselves to be in a life-giving state. So the trick is getting out of, like you said, being safe, getting out of the mindset of fear. It is marketed to us. The whole pharmaceutical industry, the medical institutions, it's the truth of it is it's a, I call it a health scare system, because its marketing is in fact based in fear. Oh my gosh, don't get the flu. Oh, do this. Everything's going to kill you. You have to fight cancer and fight all of these things. It's a war-based culture.
Way
And
outsourcing our healing capabilities.
like outsource resource within ourselves. We outsource information and we're always scared because we're outsourcing. There's always new information bombarding us. And so how can we identify what's correct, what's life-giving to us? Well, it's only from the inside. Otherwise, we'd go crazy. And that's why muscle testing, kinesiology, a lot of naturopathic doctors use it these days. They can test your muscles, recognize what's good for it or not good for it, what's deleterious to the health of the body. And you can muscle test yes or no. Does depend on the questions that the practitioner is asking, however, in some cases. But if you can test from the outside, you can also test from the inside on your own. People can't heal other people. It's very egotistical in a way to think that other people can. They can support others, but we can only heal when we can identify what resonates with us. What resonates as truth in our own body. And when we don't know what resonates, we don't know what's true, we're going to be lost. We need to numb ourselves from what we think is we're afraid of, that we need to access more information, that we're never good enough. We have to get more and more and more. And it's a bottomless pit of insecurity. So the real security and safety doesn't really come from money or things or our jobs. It comes from knowing who we are. So in any given situation, we can assess the truth. If someone is showing up in some kind of bravado or behavior, we know that underneath it there's this sadness or something's happened, and we can assess based on what we can feel in our body, not the lies that often present to us. And they're not lies, it's just that people have been brought up to not feel.
And not feel means to not trust, right? Going back down to my body's intelligence rather than my mind. The mind is great. It's just to work with the mind and the body, as we talked about mind, body, spirit, body, mind in that order. And one thing that came through for me is a vulnerability piece of like, yeah, how can I be vulnerable when I feel scared, when I'm guarded, when I don't feel safe? And um, that just goes back down to like connect with those that do create a space for that. I remember or recall a space where I was able to talk out loud for the first time, be heard, and there's a certain quality of presence that where when I speak, I'm not being interrupted. It doesn't feel like I'm being analyzed or being diagnosed or fixed, or someone's distracted on their phone. This person was so present with me, and I felt heard. And there's some healing with that I felt things started to shift for me inside of me. And so it's like coming to a place where who do I get to connect with, where I do feel safe with, where what I say is not going to be used against me or weaponized against me. For me, I've come across that environment and I've been building up that environment, and the people I say around me, I can just share. And now to the point where I can share certain parts of my life where I don't mind if you use that against me. I've worked through it, right? I'm able to see it, and this helps me be with myself because for a long time I was afraid to just be alone with my thoughts, to be by myself. I needed to be doing something or be with someone, and so then there's always that journey to eventually build that muscle to be by myself, hear my thoughts, be with those I feel safe with, and then I look forward to it because there's so much gold and wisdom in that. Right? I'm not disconnected from myself. I'm not busying myself, restless, and finding things to distract myself. I'm being with myself so that I can find my inner truth, my inner resonance, have that discernment, and to make choices from that sovereign place.
Hmm. Yeah, that's another thing, right? The paralyzation from making decisions. What's good, what's not good. Partnerships decide what's good, what's not good. That paralyzation that can sometimes happen when people are thinking with their mind, they can go in circles. Um, but the body knows what's true, and we don't have to know why. That's the universe's domain. Once we can tap into ourselves, that's what Inside Out is all about. It's about accepting, honoring, and trusting the energy as it moves. So many times we have prescripted meditations or protocols or things that really limit the capacity of what the universe can bring to us in terms of healing or insight. And so that we can get a little more specific what that's like. Our body communicates through a pre-verbal language, an a priori language, the first language, which is energetic. And that means that the imprints in our life, some of you, I know I've had things that my parents said, and it's just stuck in my whole being, things that they've done or said. Movies, all our life experiences are recorded somewhere in our being. And as we tap into ourselves in the moment, in the reflection of a trigger or anything, it will sift through this energetic information for you and present it to you through your mind's eye. Sometimes it's through dreaming and sleep, but as people get used to it, sometimes this is where the intuition, the clairvoyance, the clairaudience starts to build in people, where they can then tap into themselves instead of going to intuitions or readers to tell them what they see, which is often a static image. You're able to tune into that for yourself. And as you breathe, accept, honor, and trust, it actually transforms. It's like a movie in your own mind's eye. It's the best movie to watch ever. And they've created TV, so we're always looking at outside images and not trusting ourselves and our imagination. Imagination means allowing images to form in the mind's eye and also to transform. This capacity is normal and within our being and within our power. But I do believe, people who have a lot of money, perhaps a lot of the big bankers in the world, they want a lot of workers. And most people come home from work and they numb themselves with outside information. They don't know how to tune into their own images that are directly related to source itself and our evolution. We have archetypes. Carl Jung calls them archetypes of every kind that filters through our being in information. Archetypes are things like, in the Native American culture, spirit animals, spirit guides, ancestors. It's all energy, really. And we can access any form of energy through our body conduit at any given time. It's just that we haven't been taught.
The brain worship culture that we talked about last week, right? And it's got to make sense and rationalize and disconnect myself from my imagination, from the magic of the world. Yeah, what comes through for me is like this idea that I can do this with someone, much more supportive for me to be guided into that, to build that muscle, to build that practice so that I can do it on my own. I reference it to like direct felt experiencing or somatic work. It's like my internal world, right? In the realm of metaphors and images and the imagination, or inside out, your practice, or even parts work, inner child work, where I can just connect with what's in me and just observe. It's not thinking about it. There's nothing for me to understand. It's just for me to be with. And that's a beautiful thing too, is if I translate that to presence with someone, true listening is just to be with someone, because empathy is not something to do, it's something to be. It's a beingness, it's a quality of presence for me to just be with the humanness in another. And through our work, we always say, hey, connect to the feelings and needs, what this person feeling and what they're needing, despite what they're saying. And there's that healing quality. And in men's work, we like to witness each other, and we practice the hollow bone principle of neutrality, noticing the judgments that come up when the man shares, and then cleaning that. It's called energetic hygiene. Though if I can witness a man, all I get to say is thank you for sharing, or I hear you. And as simple as that, those simple words, those 3 words, is enough. Is enough to allow them energy to move. And you mentioned about judgment, right? How energy gets blocked by judgment, by shame. It doesn't move on its own, right? So um, to be able to witness myself in that neutral point, we call it loving witness. The witness is the ever expanding awareness of the Father, the great Father, the Son, right? The loving is the ever compassionate awareness of the Mother, combining the principles of the Father and Mother for myself, to win myself in grace and compassion. And that's how I approach when I look into the past, or I look into my shadow, from that lens, not from a lens of judgment and from a lens of shame. Because if I'm doing that to myself, easily I'm doing that to other people.
Uh, yeah, isn't that the truth? Uh, whatever we think about other people is actually what's alive in us, and it's just very tricky to see. When I see a large message there, that looks exciting to look at.
Yeah.
um, I wanted just to touch upon, because you're saying, well, as we look into the past, and we don't actually, I believe, need to look in the past. The past is present. It's alive in our body energetically at any given moment. So the only thing we need to tap into is the present moment. It will tell us energetically how we're living. And ironically, as we start to trust our inner resonant truth and that life giving energy that runs through us to give us insight, to give us direction, it will clean up any of those traumas or those energetic imprints for us.